Ah, stupid puppy! Ah. No. Rocky. Rocky. I'm not yelling at you. Hey, I'm not yelling at you. Talk to this. Talking to him. Come here, Rocky. Come here. Come here. Oh, good boy. Good boy. Good boy, Rocky. Good boy. I wasn't. I wasn't talking to you, Rocky. I was talking to Bear. Oops. Beethoven. You don't know. Arr, arr. Hey, Duke. Ew. What the fuck? Look at that. Yeah, that's what the uterus looks like. Ew.
Starting something new always feels impossible. I tell myself I'm going to change, do something productive. But somehow it's always easier to just keep doing what I always do. But then I saw a Simply Piano ad. Looked at my old keyboard sitting.
Late to the WWE that Chris Benoit, along with Nancy and Daniel, then found dead in their home. the news came as a shock to the entire wrestling world, and not wanting to carry on with the regularly scheduled Raw event, the decision was made to cancel the matches and instead showcase a tribute to the famed wrestler who so suddenly lost his life. And so on the evening of June 25th, 2007, the WWE would reflect on some of Chris Benoit's best moments in the circuit, along with their biggest stars giving personal accounts of just how much Benoit meant to them. With it all happening live in real time,
confused a little bit,
the
and
very
I don't think
night
so.
that Chris was found dead. Throughout the program, wrestlers like Stone Cold Steve Austin, John Cena, and CM Punk, who was originally scheduled to fight Benoit that night, shared heartfelt memories of just how good a man Chris Benoit was, emphasizing his talent, work ethic, and the love he had for his family.
Was respect. It meant everything to him. Respect for his business, respect for the fans, respect for the wrestlers, respect for his family, respect for himself.
And for a moment, this all seemed to be exactly what the wrestling world needed, to bring everyone together in remembrance. But near the end, a shift seemed to occur following an interview given by William Regal, whose comments towards Benoit felt far more reserved than the others before him, who poured their hearts out over their common friend.
It's a later day. I'm gonna be quiet. I'll just sit here and tell you all the things about Chris Benoit that I'd like to tell you. But now all I'm willing to say is that Chris Benoit was undoubtedly the hardest working man in professional wrestling.
According to some watching the program, the interview did feel a bit out of place, and apparently slightly threw off the vibe of the remaining show, as things felt far more stiff and reserved than at its opening. There was good reason for this. When Regal was preparing to do this live interview, he was allegedly approached by fellow wrestler John Layfield, who pulled him aside and asked, "You think he had anything to do with it?" Initially, the thought had never even
Yeah, so they don't want
crossed
to take
his
it
mind.
side too early.
In fact, he had a heartfelt message fully prepared to read in the moments leading to his interview. But something about that question made him pause, leading to his subsequent words being rather short and cautious, as the hesitation led to the creeping thought of, what if he really did have something to do with it? A thought that very few at the time had even considered, which looking back seems so surreal. As for those familiar with the case, you know exactly where this is headed.
I don't.
We're now looking at this case and ruling it as a double homicide. Suicide. Evidence in the home leads us to believe that Mr. Benoit had murdered his wife by asphyxiation. Sometime shortly after that, the same for his son Daniel.
Well,
Over the previous days,
I will never understand it. Why the children ever? Okay, I still don't understand it. Why anybody that does any of this shit, but especially even more for children, it doesn't make any sense ever.
before
I'll never
Chris's
get it.
tribute was aired, he would be the one to take the lives of his wife, son, and eventually himself. Benoit did so by drugging and strangling his son and wife, while leaving Bibles by their side, seemingly as a result of some type of mental breakdown. To this day, an exact motive is still not fully understood, but it likely had to do with a combination of multiple factors, with the most glaring being the head trauma that Benoit had suffered as a result of his profession. As following his death, Benoit's brain was studied by a neurologist who would go on to state that Benoit's brain was so severely damaged it resembled the brain of an 85-year-old Alzheimer's patient. The gruesome scene uncovered at the family home by the hands of Chris Benoit makes this whole memorial program for him just seem so much more chilling. Not even 24 hours later, the man that was being so highly praised as a loving family man would be revealed to have been the one behind his own family's murder. And as disturbing as this all is, there's plenty of other chilling moments left behind by Benoit, with perhaps none more eerie than the promo he shot for another Raw event just a few years before his death.
My wife, my children, will not be watching tomorrow. And I will do something that is unthinkable. My anger. Wait, yo! I thought WWE they played characters, right? And they're not getting in that way in characters, and barely made any crossover to like real life or whatever, right? In order to make the show what it is. But that was just like straight up a crossover with like real shit. What was that?
July 7th, 2012.
Si dicen la verdad hasta el final, podrían ganar 50,000 soles.
Television host Beto Ortiz opens up the very first episode of a brand new TV show called El Valor de la Verdad, or The Value of Truth. Throughout its airtime, the show would challenge contestants to answer a series of questions honestly, while strapped to a polygraph test. The test then monitors if the person is telling the truth or not, and with each correct answer, you earn more and more money, until you either choose not to answer a question, or until you're caught lying. Though there was a catch. The questions would get increasingly difficult and embarrassing, and all the while you're answering them, you're seated directly next to your loved ones, with whom the questions were often based around. The whole program is incredibly cringe-inducing, but in a way that you can't quite take your eyes off. And in Peru, the Value of Truth was poised to become
That's a moment of truth in Spanish or some shit, dude.
a hit, thanks in large part to the success of this very first episode.
Oh man.
In it, we're introduced to the contestant Ruth Thalia Sea Sanchez, a 19-year-old call center employee, hoping to gain fame from the show, while being accompanied by her parents and boyfriend Brian Romero, and they could not have selected a better inaugural participant. Up until this point, Ruth had lived her life in a state of poverty, and the type of money offered in the program would be life-changing for both herself and her family, which might explain her openness on air, as throughout the entire program, Ruth answers each and every question with painful honesty. In one moment, she admits that she wishes that she were white, and in another, she stated how she was often embarrassed by her parents' manners, which she says as they sat directly across from her.
Are you done soon? Can we watch the movie? Hold on, just one more level, and I'll finish this Toy Story scene. Hey, you should play with me. Really? Yeah, come on, I'll help you out. Okay.
Jesus, then. Chat,
Feel the tension.
chat, we wanted to chat, I would say minus 1 white plus 20k, minus 2 parents plus 50k. And it's so fucking dumb, dude.
It's hearts, eventually leaving her mother in tears. It only gets more painful from here, as she was asked, "Are you with your crush until someone better arrives?" To which she says, yes, with her boyfriend watching on, just to confirm. And following this, the questions would become more and more intrusive, with Ruth eventually having to admit that in order to pay her bills, she worked at a nightclub as a stripper, which was news to all of her loved ones who sat there stunned by the revelation, especially her boyfriend Ryan. A revelation that leads us to Ruth's final question, and the most painful one of all. Have you ever accepted money in exchange for sex? A question which she would answer, yes, before promptly ending her time on the show, 3 questions away from the finale.
Wait. Oh, she said no one should lie then.
Se retira.
The whole ordeal left everyone, including the audience, completely stunned. On one hand, many applauded Ruth for being so honest, and on the other, she was criticized for putting her family and her boyfriend specifically through this embarrassing line of questions, broadcast for the whole country to see. The cringe-inducing episode became so popular that the station supposedly aired it each weekend for a staggering 12 weeks straight.
What?
The show and Ruth herself became instant phenomena, and in a sense, this did bring Ruth some of the fame that she so desperately desired, making appearances on multiple news programs in the following weeks, becoming a legitimate household name in Peru. And the finances helped her situation too, as she walked away with 15,000 sols, or about $5,800 US.
What?
For a moment, it seemed as if the pain of releasing all this private information might have actually been worth it. Until the day she vanished. Out of nowhere, Ruth suddenly went radio silent, missing appointments and failing to answer her phone while her home sat vacant. For 10 days straight, there was no sign of the young star, prompting a massive search of the area she lived in, with those same loved ones that had accompanied her on the Valley of Truth, helping lead the search efforts. Until, eventually, police would happen across her lifeless body, buried in a shallow grave. She had died of asphyxiation, a clear-cut case of murder.
Raid Shadow Legends. Play for free.
People going bald think they need to fly to Turkey and get a hair transplant. But the reality is that there are other treatments to regrow your hair without a hair surgery. It's a non-invasive, drug-free option that really helps. I've been using the iRestore Elite myself to maintain what I have without more invasive treatments. The build quality really impressed me. Solid, premium, and well-made. If there's one LED helmet I recommend, it's this one. I mostly use it on my stubborn temple area, where I still have some baby.
Alright, let's see one more time now. Let's open the new one.
You okay, puppy? should have left that filling me.
You close out.
We've actually set up each of